Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of East Got Game, where we give you the X's, the O's, and the insights of the NBL1 East. Thanks for joining us tonight live on YouTube and possibly Instagram if it decides it wants to work, but so far, no. Just Instagram and Facebook. Remember, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at East Got Game. Or you can continue to find our episodes on your preferred streaming platforms. On this week's episode, we'll be covering the headlines of round, is it 9 or 10 now, Lockie? I've lost count after the long weekend.
I believe that it was round 10 this week.
Round 10. Hard to keep track. We'll be covering the headlines of round 10. We'll also cover our EGG Game of the Week between the Penrith Panthers and Hornsby Ku-ring-gai Spiders women's teams. And we'll also have a very special guest interview to wrap it up. Lockie, how are you feeling after having a break over that June long weekend?
It was much needed. I went to a soccer game for the first time in many weeks, which was quite nice. I did that on the Saturday. But it was just nice to have a week off. If you haven't noticed, I'm sitting in front of a different wall to what I was sitting in front of last week.
Yeah, I thought it looked a little bit different. What's going on there?
Well, I spent the Friday of the long weekend completely rearranging my living room. And now the desk I sit at to record is to the right of where it was before.
And how's that working out for you so far?
Spectacularly. I love it, actually.
Oh, that's good. So happy with your choice?
I am very happy with my choice.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it. So it must have been nice getting back into some soccer games as well, though.
It was good. 95th minute winner, 1-0. Oh, that was nice. That was very exciting. Not as much scoring as we get in the NBL1.
No, definitely not. Or the NBL across Australia, for that matter.
Correct.
But nice to flex some muscles in other areas. We always need a bit of a break from basketball, so we're hoping the rest of the NBL 1 East competition, whether you're a player, a coach, a manager, referee, statistician, score table, etc., that all make up the league, had a lovely restful weekend over the June long weekend. But we are back at it. Round 10, like you said, Lockie, it looks like the headlines just keep coming in the East. What have you got for us?
Don't they just? Sutherland with the sneaky addition of Taylor Young from East Perth. If he didn't play this weekend or the weekend just gone, he wouldn't have been able to play at all because he wouldn't have been able to qualify for finals. But he came straight in. Last year, he averaged 17 points, 4 assists, and 5.6 rebounds for East Perth over in NBL 1 West. And came off the bench, played 20 minutes in the Sharkies win over Maitland and scored 13 points, shooting 5 of 10 from the field and 2 of 5 from three-point range. And we all know if there's one thing the Sharks could use in the post-Callum Norris era, it's someone who can knock down a three-ball regularly. So very handy addition late in the piece. But Chola Dup had a few words on Instagram in the comments for Kawat Noi talking about reinforcements.
Yeah, was that on the Instagram reel that Love of the Game posted a little while ago? Like a reaction reel?
Yeah. Chol in the comments just pointing out that Kawat had mentioned the Comets getting reinforcements, and now the Sharks have gone out and done the same thing.
Jeez, those two love stirring the pot and adding the spice.
And they play each other 12 days from now.
Oh, that's going to be good. That's going to be toasty. Are they playing at the Shark Tank this time?
No, they'll be playing at the home of hoops, Alexandria Basketball Stadium. But I will still be calling the game. So.
Oh, that would be great. That would be really good. But yeah, I love the banter between those two. And I'm sure it is like, half poking the bear and half in jest as well, because I don't think those guys have got any malice between them. But I love the little bit of drama, love the little bit of spice in the league, especially in the comments section. It just kind of, I don't know, brings a little bit more attention to the East in whatever way we can get it.
Certainly does. Yeah, as long as it's all in good fun and doesn't cross the line, we love it.
So this new signing for Sutherland, my understanding is that you can sign or add players to your roster as long as you don't have any more than like 15, regardless of what time of the season it's in. But if you really want them to qualify for finals, they have to play at least 7 games, right?
8 games.
8 games.
It's now 4. It used to be, I think in Waratah League, it was 1/3 of the season plus a game, or 1/3 of the season if it was divisible by 3. But now it's actually 40% of the season, so 8 games. And if you haven't played and your team has fewer than 8 games left, then you can't come in and play. You are if you can't qualify for finals and you haven't played, you cannot play
at all.
No. So you can't just, so if you're, 3 games left in the season and, someone, you've got an NBL guy, you want to bring Jalen Adams in for a couple of games just to get you over the line for finals as an import. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of teams will have people on an injury list from the start of the season if they are injured or otherwise, because then that technically still means that they're waived from that rule and can qualify. We saw it in the WNBL a few seasons ago with the Melbourne Boomers, RIP. They had someone on the injury list for a long time and then brought them in like at the end of the season. And then that kind of helped them get to the final.
Yeah, because that was a very good player, as I remember correctly. And so was the injury replacement.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yes. But so you have to play, regardless of all your waivers and anything, you have to play at least 4 games. And then you can be depending on when it happens, you can be waived for X amount of other games to get you up to 8 if need be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So timing is everything.
Certainly is. And I guess on the women's side, Sutherland also have an addition who was on the team sheet but didn't get on the court. Might have been a week early, but I saw her warming up at about 11 a.m. on Saturday morning as I was down setting up. And of course, I'm talking about Lauren Nicholson. Back on the team sheet for the Sharkies. After giving birth to young Ari, who I have met. Great kid.
Great kid. All of what? 3 months old?
2. I don't think it's even that, but
yeah.
We share a bond. We both wear noise cancelling headphones at the game.
Oh, that's there you go. Yeah, your besties for life.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah. So the Sharks are now 4-9, and they still have to play, I believe, Newcastle and Albury Wodonga, and those are not games you want to have to bank on winning. So to have Lauren Nicholson back to hopefully run through the other 5 games and get to at least 9 and see what happens in those other 2. It gives the Sharks much more of a chance at finals than they would otherwise have had, but they really could have done with a win against Maitland on the weekend, which they did not get. They lost by 13 in a game they were down 12-0 at the first timeout.
That's a steep climb. That's a steep climb coming from 12-0 down.
Yes.
Loz Nicholson was also announced in the last couple of weeks that she will be returning to the Sydney Flames for the next WNBL season. So it is probably in her best interest to get some reps up, and I'm sure that she's chomping at the bit to get some time back on court. She was already in such great form before she took time off to have her first child. And there is a pretty consistent trend that mums coming back to pro sport perform like just as good, if not better.
That's couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, I think as especially women's sports got more professional over the years, and people are, I guess the S&C side and the sports science side has actually taken the time to learn and what it takes to help mothers get back to playing at their top form. It's no longer I guess, even if it wasn't physically a career ender, in a lot of coaches and clubs' minds, it was. And I don't think that should never have been the case. And nowadays, it regularly is not the case.
Yeah, you're right. Gone are the days where it's like, oh, you're having a baby. Oh, that means you're like an automatic assumption that a female athlete is going to retire. I remember on another podcast a couple of years ago when Leilani Mitchell fell pregnant with gorgeous Elle, who I think recently turned 3. This other podcaster who is run by 2 veterans of Australian basketball basically just counted her out and said, oh, well, she's having a baby. That's it. She's retired, which was so prehistoric and insulting. And look, she's back on court. Sure, she's chosen not to return to Opals and things like that, but she returned to WNBL. She still had WNBA interest as well in those seasons. So being pregnant doesn't mean retirement anymore.
Certainly does not. And it's a good thing for the Sharks and the Flames.
Yeah, definitely. And Loz.
Yes.
A couple of more interesting headlines from the women's rounds as well. We've got some NBL 1 East staples representing us internationally.
Yeah, so Kitty Henderson from Manly Warringah has been chosen to represent Great Britain at Eurobasket, which is absolutely massive because, Great Britain really come on in leaps and bounds. I think that they're doing a very good job of finding eligible players internationally and perhaps finding ones that don't need to be naturalized, which I think is probably the hardest thing because I think you have to be a citizen by your 16th birthday. So if you're like, oh, I'll just get my passport when I need it, then you're a naturalized player. So yes, great to see Kitty playing Eurobasket. She's alongside Hannah Jump, American star, Stanford, and former NBL 1 West star Sam Ashby. So there's three players. I think Hannah might actually be born in the UK, but definitely players not based in Great Britain that they've managed to scoop up. So great to see.
Yeah, and with FIBA changing those rules as well about being able to switch to a different nationality or a different country representation depending on your citizenship status. So we've even seen Kitty Henderson as an Australian junior can now play senior for GB. Kawat Noi, Aussie junior, now was in the South Sudan squad for the Olympics. And also Talia Tupaya, also an Australian junior who has gone to the New Zealand squad.
Talia even went on a senior Opals tour. Not an official tournament. She went on one of those China tours as a senior Opal. So that all gets underway. Great Britain's first game is on the evening of the 19th, so it'll be very early Friday morning Australian time, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, awesome. And then the other big news, I guess, that's East related in the women's competition is that Hannah Chicken has left to go start her college career at Portland State University. So we wish her all the best.
Yes.
And the new Bankstown recruit that was the missing piece to the women's program for 2025, Shyla Heal, announced yesterday that she has signed with Geelong United /Venom/Force for the next WNBL season. And I say // because if you follow them on Instagram, they've recently put up a poll about what should Geelong's team name be for the new look WNBL. So the options are, so they're currently Geelong United, but the options are Force or Venom.
Super Cats.
Super Cats. Just keep it Super Cats.
Turn everything back to Super Cats and be done with it. Like Newey have done with the Falcons in NBL 1. Just call everything the Super Cats.
Super Cats, done. I think if that was a third option, I would definitely vote for Super Cats.
Yeah.
Some pretty exciting news across the league. Oh, and then one more. former NBL 1 East Defensive Player of the Year, Alex Higgins-Titcher, has been announced in the 3x3 World Cup team that are going to be playing in Mongolia soon. Like, absolutely incredible to see his rise to the NBL and now going to a World Cup for 3x3 in the green and gold. Like, absolutely amazing. So stoked for him.
Same. I know he doesn't play in the East anymore, but he's made in the East.
He's made in the East. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's great. We've got so much local talent going on to do great things, and hopefully they will return one back to the league. But for now, we're very proud that they're representing us.
Very much so.
Okie dokie. So that was the headlines. I should probably put the banners on the screen. That will probably help. And now it's time to get into the East Got game of the week for round 10. Initially, we did pick the game between the Inner West Bulls and the Sydney Comets women. However, there was no game to be watched.
Well, the game happened.
The game happened. There were stats, but there was no video or no recording uploaded. But that's okay. We found another great women's game that we can cover for two teams that we haven't covered so far in this season of East Got Game. It was between the Penrith Panthers and the Hornsby Ku-ring-gai Spiders. Again, women's competition. Penrith going down at home 63-68. So Hornsby notching up another win. I'm glad that we reviewed this game, actually, Lockie. What were your initial impressions of this game just from the start before we get into the quarter-by-quarter breakdown?
From the start, when I first looked at it, I was like, "Oh, this could be a trap game for Hornsby." And I think that's not giving Penrith enough credit, because I think Penrith was still, and it bore out in the scoreline, that Penrith, sitting at 5-9, was still an outside chance at making a run at the 8. Tell you what, I know they finally put them on sale, the Heritage jerseys.
Oh, Penrith did?
Yes.
Oh, I am tempted to get one of them. They looked so good on court. So good. I really, really like them. So whoever designed them at Penrith, well done.
Yeah, and good to see a number of teams, doing Heritage jerseys. I bid on so many Newcastle's Heritage jerseys and didn't get any.
Didn't get any?
Parents.
Damn. How dare you be so proud of your children that you buy their jerseys?
I know, right? This game overall, it felt really interesting. Perhaps the players I thought, apart from Jessie May Hall dropping 25, the players I thought might have a day out really didn't, and it kind of transpired all in a different way to what I thought it would, especially at the defensive end for Hornsby. I think when Lucy Mead was subbed in early, I think that was something that really changed things, that changed the way the game unfolded a little bit. And it made it a really interesting watch because of the makeup of Hornsby Ku-ring-gai's front court, who they have. Hutchins, Bay, Audette, and then Mead kind of slotting in a bit taller than she actually is. So it was really interesting, and it wasn't something I fully expected, because, I basically picked this game because Comets and Bulls, yeah, that was a great shout. And I was just looking at close games not featuring teams we haven't done yet. I was like, oh, Penrith Hornsby. Yeah, let's have a crack at that. And it just turned into, as the game went on and on, it just turned into a really, really tight game. And it was, despite being low scoring and the 3-point shooting not really being there, it was interesting for a lot of other reasons.
Yeah, for me, my first impressions were the retro jerseys that Penrith were wearing, 10 out of 10. But also, got to give some love to the coaching staff of the Hornsby Ku-ring-gai Spiders, who were wearing those retro representative jackets with the white panel and that fabric where that is just completely synthetic fabric. And if that were to catch fire, you would be in serious trouble.
Yeah.
Like it's that real harsh plastic, not plasticky, but like crepey material that was so popular in the 90s and 2000s. Like I remember my Met North jacket probably being of that same material. And if you want to know, or Sydney North jacket, if you want to know what the Sydney North jackets looked like back in the day, go look at the new Perth Wildcats merchandise and look at their jackets, because that is giving me Sydney North jacket vibes. So I really liked that in first impressions. I wrote down a couple. I mean, between James and Garen, when they commentate, they have they're on auto fire with so many of their references and puns and pop culture references particularly. It's hard to keep up with, but these are the ones that I managed to write down. When someone did a spin move and James referred to it as Dizzy Gillespie, and I was like, are you even old enough to know that reference?
Yeah.
And then he even said himself, oh, that's an old reference. And I was like, yeah. How old are you? So also the Dizzy Gillespie thing, and then him admitting it was an old reference, I thought was really funny. And also they were talking about something, and then chicken wings, and then nuggets, and then Garen says, Ben Kieran nuggets, go get your Ben Kieran's nuggets from the canteen. Like Penrith has got to be paying Garen some royalties for coming up with that slogan. Like that should be a thing. Given that Ben Kieran's has been, Penrith, he's like the Penrith guy. He needs to trademark Ben Kieran's nuggets at the canteen, and Gary needs to get royalties for coming up with that. I was like, that just cracked me up. And then the last one was, I think Hornsby got a couple of steals, and they said James said more cookies than Subway, and then he's like, don't go to Subway, it's rubbish. like the pun, and then very, very serious, but don't go to Subway, it's rubbish. So it's just like this running thoughts of references, and then being very real with a chit chat. I thought that was really, really funny too. But my biggest tick coming into this game was just seeing Tegan Edwards playing again.
Oh, how good.
Oh my gosh. So formerly known as Tegan Burke, for those that can remember. As the boys said in the commentary, originally from Bathurst, then moved to the Central Coast for a period. And I think Tegan played most of her juniors for Gosford City Rebels at the Central Coast. And then, back to Penrith. I think she played a little bit of State League. And, I'm really, really glad she's playing again. I will say Tegan Edwards, back then Burke, was the most underrated and underappreciated player in her age group. She was technically very good on offense and defense, great shooter, great passer, great teammate, just reads the game beautifully, like such a high IQ and such a team player. She was so underappreciated, like how she wasn't making Aussie squads for that age group. She had to be close. But the thing is, she does all the right. She very rarely makes a bad decision at either end of the court, but then she weirdly just doesn't stand out. It's almost like she set herself this really high bar that it's like, oh, that's just how she plays. But then if that were anyone else, you'd be like, wow, they're playing such a great game. They're doing all these great things, but that's just like her norm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could be here all night talking about those old school Bathurst teams, Tegan, Rachel Murray, Lapeo. Actually, I was talking to Malik Jenkins from this Penrith team, and she was saying that Tegan and Rachel were two of her coaches growing up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, so I was really excited to see her playing again and playing lots of minutes, because unfortunately, Sarika Shillingsworth wasn't there.
Yeah.
Not sure why, unfortunately. The boys didn't mention on the call, I don't think, unless they did and it was sandwiched in between a chicken wing or chicken nugget reference. But that was a big loss for Penrith. But let's go through this game quarter by quarter. So tell me your overall impressions, highlights and lowlights from the first quarter, Lockie.
The the first 2 minutes, Tatiana Beaumont just finding Jordan Vasquez anywhere and anyhow she wanted to. And I think Vasquez had the first 6 points for Penrith. And it was 11-3 Penrith after a brilliant baseline out of bounds play where Impresso just got to the corner and everyone was like, where's Jolene? And she just buried the 3. Penrith, they did that. They drew Nicole Hutchins had 1 early offensive foul. And then, so they had 2 early fouls on Nicole Hutchins. And I thought that was where Penrith might take over more. But it went the other way. And that was that frustrated me. Because in the, like, as I was mentioned, first couple of minutes, Beaumont just finding Vasquez in the paint. And she's just easy as you like. And then I get that second foul on Hutchins. And then the next thing you see is Heidi and Vasquez out on the perimeter. I'm like, what? Why? You can't both be out there when you just, got the opposition's, biggest, tallest player in foul trouble. You should be absolutely feasting down there. And that's what I said in my overall impression. I think that's where Lucy Mead came into the reckoning when she subbed in. They traded a bit of speed for height, and I think it really worked. They were forced to trade a bit of speed, trade a bit of height for Lucy Mead's better speed, but I think that it worked out for them, for Hornsby. I think definitely the highlight from Penrith was their initial start, and then the low light is definitely what happened. It's like they overthought their advantage, is what it felt like. Whereas for Hornsby, I think Hornsby, obviously, they finished the quarter really well. It was 17-9 with 2 minutes to play, and Jessie May started being a bit more aggressive, getting to the rack. She didn't have the best shooting night overall, but she looked better late in the first quarter. And then Lucy Mead, again, that pickoff of that pass to end the first quarter. She just jumped up and almost volleyball spiked the long pass as Penrith were trying to get down court in the last few seconds to lay it home. It probably should have been 19-11 after a quarter. Instead, it was 17-13.
Yeah, I really like that start from Penrith as well in this game. They kind of were running in transition early. They were running together. Beaumont, like you said, did a really great job of getting either creating a play for Vasquez or just giving her had really nice touches on her passes, and her passing placement was really well done to put Vasquez in the perfect scoring position. I found that it got a bit too predictable too early. And I think this is a running theme throughout the whole game. Obvious that if you're having someone like Vasquez and Heidi inside that are just so good at that role, of course, use them as much as you can, but it became very predictable. And Hornsby made a very good and very quick adjustment to try and make that more difficult. They started to get deflections. They started to wall up really well anytime Heidi or Vasquez got a deep catch. I thought Ayana Bay did a really good job against Heidi just with her physicality. Sometimes Bay was a little bit reactive on the catch. She would take a while to, Heidi would catch it in the post or in the short corner and Bay would kind of approach only on the catch. But just in terms of being able to anticipate Heidi's change of direction and using a bit more physicality, sometimes maybe getting a little bit too much into Heidi's cylinder. But yeah, I think it really rocked Heidi a little bit. And I think she did a really, really good job under there. It was great team defense on those deep catches from Hornsby against Penrith. But they just kept trying to throw it in there. Sometimes it worked, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they got really good points. Like you said, Vasquez had the first 6 points. But then as soon as Hornsby made that quick adjustment, Penrith have got to go to something else. And that followed into the second quarter for me too.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned the deep catch because there was a period with about 3 minutes to play where Heidi just started kind of almost skulking around the free throw line and got 2 middies in the space of 2 possessions. She just managed to get a little bit of separation, just drift out to the free throw line and knock those down where the defenders are sort of thinking, do I follow her out there or not kind of thing. So there were times when they were able to, but I don't think, as you mentioned, it was too predictable and they didn't do it often. They didn't go to something else often enough.
Yeah, and even that old classic of inside, outside, change sides, like just because the ball goes in on the first touch doesn't mean it has to stay there. Like it can come back out again. And if it comes back out again, it doesn't mean it's not going to go back in. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's kind of that fear of like, oh, but if I give it up, I'm not going to get it back. Because I think there were a lot of times as well in the first quarter and particularly in the second where Tegan Edwards was wide open. Wide open on the 3, wide open on a weak side cut, wide open on the, on some kind of receiver spot. And I was just like, give her the ball. Give it to her. She's such a good shooter. And she's such a good passer. Like she's going to give it back to you. Just give it to her. You don't have to force up shots with 2 defenders on you. Just give it to her. It's very frustrating. And then I think the only other thing I'll say about Hornsby in the first quarter, perhaps actually both teams, as we kind of came into quarter time, both teams were just rushing a lot of shots. They still wanted to play with pace, but then they were kind of like going down one end and thinking, I have to put something up, where they could have just done with a couple of extra passes or maybe pulling it out every so often, letting the ball do the work. I think both teams rushed their shots at the end of that first quarter.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it bears out in the turnover numbers. For the entire game, really, how many of them were rushed, but it definitely started in the first quarter.
Yes, and so the second quarter for me, the Penrith kind of kept trying to do the same thing. Like they had a lot of soft turnovers in the second quarter. I'd love it if the box scores, similar to on game day when you're getting the box scores per quarter when you're commentating, you're able to track like how many turnovers per quarter or how many whatever per quarter, and then kind of see that reflected in a change that either team made. Would love to know how many turnovers they had in the second quarter because it just felt like 50% of Penrith's possessions were all these soft turnovers, and that's what lost them the lead.
Yeah, it really did. It was just, passes and like soft in that there was no defender around them. It was like just passes up court or passes across the arc or, not even entry.
Off someone's foot.
Yeah. Like against the team, you've already got Jessie May Hall there averaging astronomical numbers of steals. I'm not sure exactly what the number is. You don't need to give Hornsby any more chances to get the ball off you. No,
it was some of the soft turnovers were things like those predictable passes on the inside and Hornsby able to get a deflection that ended up being in the hands of deflected into the hands of another Hornsby player. Some of them were, and to be fair, Hornsby also threw a lot of turnovers in this quarter. Some of them were just like in transition, passing a little bit too far ahead, passing off someone's foot, going on a drive and getting stripped, like just those real little things that we need to start training out of our brain when we get to NBL 1.
Yeah, just like I literally wrote it down. Hornsby just passed it. Literally, I didn't catch who it was, but maybe because it happened multiple times, just literally passing it to a big's feet.
Yeah.
They got a long way to bend down.
We don't want it down there. Our hands are here. The basket is here. We want the ball here.
Yeah.
That's where we want the ball. We want it up here. I'm not getting down there.
No.
But going back, you mentioned Jessie May Hall's steal stats. She's averaging 5.82 steals a game.
That is obscene.
Yeah.
I would say she only had 4, so it dropped only had 4, so the average went down a little bit.
Yeah. Just a casual 4. Just a casual 4. I'm pretty interested to see actually how she compares to the whole NBL1 competition. So when it loads, I'll let you know. But also second quarter for me, each team trying out a bit of a zone. I was trying to pick, so Penrith went into a 2-3 zone in some occasions, and I was trying to pick the timing. I think they were going into a zone on a score and then man on a miss, I think, because there was a couple of times where there were some mismatches and Imprezzo had to guard like Hutchins under the basket and things like that, and they had to make a switch. And then Hornsby as well went into the 1-3-1 zone about halfway through the second, which I thought looked pretty effective, especially when you've got really quick guards that with length, like Jessie May Hall. Even if you put a Lucy Mead on that wing position or at the top of the 1-3-1, that could be really effective against some smaller guards. But yeah, Hornsby did really, really well to take the lead early in this second quarter. And it was started with that beautiful bounce pass from Kira Hudson into a rolling Ayana Bay, like within the first 1.5 minutes. I loved it.
I love that play, not only for what it was, but also Jessie May, she hadn't really got her scoring going. So I just like that they went to something else, got someone else to put the ball in the basket, get things rolling, rather than keep, have Jessie May feel like she has to, jumpstart all the offense kind of thing. So I really like the timing of when because it really felt like they really set out to do that. It's like, this is what we're doing. And they went straight to it and it worked.
Yeah, perfect execution. That pass as well that Kira threw was direct. It was assertive. It was purposeful. Perfect placement. Clip that up. Put that in a demonstration video of this is how you give a bounce pass. I loved it.
Yeah. Very, very easy to half volley your big in that situation. So very nice to see.
Yeah, and I'm glad that Bay made the shot too, because nothing would annoy you more as a guard of throwing that perfect dime and not getting the assist. The only other point that I have for the second quarter for Penrith, which was also shown early in the first, was that Tatiana Beaumont's dribble penetration and passing is elite. I haven't watched her play for a long time, and I didn't realize how good she is at dribble penetration, given her size as well. And she's quick, but she's not like the quickest player on the court. But the way she uses that first step and the angle of her body to get around defenders and to cut them off is really, really good. Really good. And that's how she's able to set herself up or set someone else up for scoring opportunities. But I'd kind of like her to be a little bit more selfish and put up a few more shots.
Me too. It's funny. She was, earlier in the season when I saw her, she was like, shot 0 of 5 from 3. That's like, but you won 55-46 and you're a much better player than that. So keep shooting.
Yeah. No sweat. I mean, I think James and Garen on the call were trying to build some hype around an all-star weekend. And I think James picked Beaumont to be the 3-point shooter from Penrith. Shooter's going to shoot.
Shooter's going to shoot. Shoot your shot.
And I think in this quarter as well, so Hornsby did a great job getting that lead really early in the second quarter, just going back to basics and executing well, just getting 2 or 3 stops in a row and making your layups at the other end. So while Penrith were forcing, throwing all those soft turnovers, Hornsby were able to punish that really early, and that's how they got the lead. And to their credit, they were able to maintain it.
They certainly were. And Penrith were 10 points for the quarter. That's tough. You're holding a slender lead but full credit to Hornsby Karingai, really. I mean, Penrith, they looked a little stagnant. There were a couple of times where I hate to call her out for this because I love her. But Sophia Hunt she blew past the first defender, got to the second line and kind of just stopped dead still. And one of those possessions did end in a turnover when she passed it. She actually had it stolen away. So Yeah. Once you get past that first defender, you kind of got to have the idea in your head as to why you're doing this kind of thing.
Yeah.
You get past the first defender and go, am I kicking it to the corner? Am I going up? What am I doing? Kind of thing. All right, but I mean, she's 8 months out of high school. Yeah, she got plenty of time to learn.
She got time.
Yeah.
And this was also a quarter where we saw Jessie May Hall attack a lot in transition. Wow, I'm really mincing my words today. In transition. And I noticed that she prefers to go right down the middle.
Yeah.
So typically players would go either side, on their strong hand perhaps. And the advantage of going either side as well is that you kind of can drag the defense away, and then that can help you with the decision making. It can open up the court for a trail cut or something like that, to make a 2-on-1 situation. She goes right down the middle, and she's really good at going at pace downhill, doing that little inside out step, and then just powering on through.
And she's got that little floater she loves in her arsenal as well. So going straight on is probably a help there as well. It probably actually gives her more options in a situation where it would give most players fewer options.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. Yeah, for her, she's got the floater. She's got a very quick Euro step. She's got a very quick counter move where I think she likes to go forward and will do like a fadeaway, like a spin back and do a little fadeaway under the basket. But obviously, she's very quick. But what I really like in those one-on-one opportunities is that she stays low the whole time. And so that's something that you try and instill in young players, that even when they grow old, even as players grow older, we still don't stay in a stance the whole time. Offense, defense, otherwise. But she'll start low, sometimes even get lower, and then just use her quickness and I guess how low she is just to power and through. And that's why she can finish so well, because she's got so much elevation left or power behind her left to elevate to make those shots. Like, again, just clip it up.
Clip it up.
Put it in the video of demonstration of how to do this properly.
It's just going to be the Hornsby Ku-ring-gai Spiders coaching clinic.
Yeah. They've got 2 clips so far, and it's not even halftime.
There we go.
What else did you see in the second quarter?
I think we've covered just about everything that I've seen. I mean, I will give credit to both teams we've been talking about soft turnovers, but there certainly were times where it was the defense stepping up, putting pressure on players and forcing those turnovers. And what I wrote down about Penrith's turnovers is Hornsby Ku-ring-gai only had 10 points from turnovers, but you can't keep having to chase a team back for 40 minutes and expect it to not get in your legs at the end of the game. And that's what I always think about turnovers, and especially live ball turnovers, is if you keep turning the ball over and you got to keep chasing back in transition to keep those points from turnovers low. We talk about it in cycling. You only got so many matches you can burn. And if you've got to chase back, literally, if you've got to chase back to the pack in cycling, you burn matches. And it's the same when you've got to run back on defense 24 times or however many times Sanders turn the ball over. And yeah, the points from turnovers might not have been big, but it's key. You keep giving teams enough opportunities and it will burn you in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were talking to our guest that's going to be our interview guest this week. We were talking to him yesterday about some of the we're not sure if this has changed or what is considered now a fast break point or a second chance point, but between the three of us, we were saying that we've noticed how it feels like there should be more fast break points on the analysis, part of the stat sheet, but it's lots of games are really, really low numbers. So I also wonder if in this game, let's have a look at second chance points for Hornsby. 9 all game, with 7 of the 9 coming in the third quarter. Fast break points, 8 all game, with 4 coming in that second quarter. I just feel like it was at least 6 in that second quarter.
Yeah, I feel like I actually went back and read the FIBA rules. I tried to find like what the FIBA stats say, and the best description I could get was that fast break points comes before the defense is set. And it feels like it's so stringent, like a player has to be out by themselves, 1-on-0, for it to be called a fast break. Is the only explanation I have, but not having the actual FIBA live stats or whatever the official rules are for categorizing these points in front of me. Maybe someone else has an official explanation as to what constitutes fast break points.
Yeah, because like anytime the defense isn't set, so if you are running in a 2-on-1 situation, that one defender hustles back and then gets in their position where they're able to see both and guard both from the key. Does that count as defense is set, or does
no?
It count
it has to be. It
has to be all 5 people.
I think yeah.
Interesting. But perhaps a conversation for another day.
Yes.
Rolling into the third quarter, what were some of the things that you saw? Did you see much change in either team in the third quarter?
Well, it was definitely a better offensive quarter across the board. It was the highest scoring quarter of the game by a long way. What I wrote about Penrith was you make it very hard to go inside out when you shoot 21% as a team from 3-point range for the season. And
for the season, yes.
Yeah. And it was obviously it was worse on this particular game, but
yeah,
you don't, Hornsby weren't scouting based on what happened in the first 2 quarters of the game. That was scouting based on the season. So fair. Hornsby, as the game progressed, I saw more and more double and even triple teams on anything remotely close to a deep catch. And why not? This is on Penrith catches and Hornsby defending. Yeah. And I mean, Penrith managed to score 17 points in the quarter, but they don't make it easy for themselves getting in that situation when they don't have shooters that the opposition has to respect. You don't need Leilani Mitchell, Diana Taurasi out there. Honestly, I would prefer to have 2 serviceable shooters than 1 good shooter and everyone else on the perimeter not being a factor, and give the defense more to think about. Of course, depending on the shooting percentages of each player. But as it went on, this was later. Zoe Jackson catching it a little bit higher. Hornsby didn't seem as ready to double Jackson. I don't know if that was just the position of the catch or it was a personnel decision, but there was one particular play where it was so well done by both Penrith players. Jackson caught it. It was kind of high post, and she was guarded. She had the mismatch with Hudson, and she just waited and waited, and Ayana Bay dropped off the double. Taryn Marnie turned her head. Jordan Vasquez saw it and took off, and Jackson just gone, there you go, Jordan. And
that's the exact one that I wrote down too.
Yeah. It was just so well done, because if Jordan doesn't recognize Taryn Marnie turning her head for a split second, that play doesn't happen. And yeah, I think that was probably one of Penrith's best plays of the day. And I certainly think they look better catching it a little higher than they did getting deeper and just having swarms of Hornsby Ku-ring-gai defenders around them. I mean, Hornsby, they were better offensively as well, slightly better offensively. I feel like at times they went a little bit more in out than they had in the previous 2 quarters. I think it was one of the first possessions that Taryn Marnie checked. Taryn Marnie checked in for Ayana Bay at one point. That really changed things up. But Taryn Marnie will compete with anyone defensively. So, I mean, she doesn't have the size that Ayana does, but she certainly can compete and will, she can take a hit from just about anyone. So, and I think the first possession she came in, she actually got a 3 off some good ball movement that started from the ball going in and coming back out and going around and finding money. I do think it was a lot. I think the halftime chat was the best thing that could have happened for both teams, to be entirely honest, after a second quarter where I don't think either coach would have been particularly enamored with how it transpired.
No, definitely not. No, it was one of those games where there was so many positive signs from both teams in terms of style of play, decision making, execution, but there just wasn't enough. Like there were lots of great incidences, lots of great glimpses, and then just so many silly things happening, so many soft turnovers, so many predictability, so many, dribbling a ball off a foot, all that kind of stuff, where I was like, this has so much potential to be a really great game, but all these bad habits are creeping in. All the kind of rush shots were creeping in. So we've got to try and train that kind of out of people. And I think it primarily comes down to decision making, particularly in the first half. And then in the second half, just putting in shots.
Yeah.
Second half, I felt like the decision making was much better. A lot more people were being involved to try and be scorers. Just couldn't get the ball in the hole.
No.
Like it's just shooting percentage was low this game.
Yeah, I mean, especially the 3-point shooting. I mean, Penrith hit their only 3 of the game in the first quarter, and then went 1 of 17 for the entire game. But yeah, like I said, if you can't hit a 3, it takes away so much from what you are able to force the defense to do.
And some of those 3s were shots that had to be made because they were at risk of a shot clock violation. And some of them were still on target. I'm not saying that a lot of these missed shots couldn't hit the side of a barn. A lot of them were still on target. They were just kind of just popping out or just short. But we got to make some shots, and lots of shots on the inside as well for both teams. Having said that, half of the points for each team did come from inside the paint. Surprisingly, Penrith's points in the paint got better as the game went on, given that there was so much attention on Vasquez and Heidi in the first half. And then Hornsby's points in the paint were really strong in the second and third quarter. And they're the 2 quarters where they scored their most points.
Yeah, I mean, the 2-point percentage, it's not like 43 and 47% for Penrith and Hornsby respectively. It's not bad. I mean, as we keep saying, the 3-point percentage more than offsets it, unfortunately.
Yeah, it certainly does. Yeah. And now, truth be told, I ran out of time to watch the fourth quarter. So I'm going to be relying on your observations for the fourth.
My observations for the fourth. This was the most obvious of Hornsby triple teaming Penrith was at the start of the fourth, because it was almost right at the start of the fourth that Heidi got to catch 10 foot from the basket, and immediately 3 Hornsby players crowded her, immediately stripped the ball. But that's one turnover. But it was, again, the soft turnovers without pressure that really hurt Penrith in the early stages. But fair play to them. They kept in it. And, it was a 1-point game with 2 minutes to play. It felt like Jessie May she shot 7 of 23, but she always felt like especially down the stretch, she often felt like a threat, which she always does, which is part of what makes her so good, that even if she's having not the best day, she'll still find a way to make an impact, and she still attracts defenders, which you've got to have her out there. But as much as Penrith had soft turnovers early in the final quarter, Hornsby Ku-ring-gai are probably fortunate to have had a 1-point lead heading into the final minute, because they turned the ball over. There were people, putting it on the floor in close quarters with defenders all around them, which is something that really irks me. As someone who is not tall by basketball standards, especially on the men's side, when I see bigs who I know if they just put the ball up like this, even with my vertical leap, I would not be able to touch the ball. And I see them put it on the floor where these little people can just start smacking it around. I don't like it.
No, don't take it to the little people. Leave the little people down there. You take the ball back up here.
Yeah,
exactly. Don't take it down there to them.
No. But I'll go back to Jessie May, because I think it was 62-61 with 1:52 to play. And just the play recognition from Jessie May. She got the ball on the left wing. Mia Heidi came out and closed out for the 3, and she just put it on the floor and went off. Got to the basket, floater, and won. No, not an and one. Got the floater, took the lead. It was just exactly what Hornsby Ku-ring-gai needed at the time. Just watch the opposition player come out for the closeout and just see you later. I think if Mia had tried to get out there and stop and try to guard Jessie May taking off, it probably would have ended just as badly, because she just wouldn't have been, her momentum would have just been sending her the wrong way. She was caught between a rock and a hard place on a slightly late closeout. And Penrith had a chance to win it, or to at least take the lead. Jackson she was trailing and just bowled the ball, and it ended in another turnover. And it's just it was just one of those things where you had so many turnovers all day, and this was just the one at the worst possible moment. But Zoe had that one, had that turnover. It wasn't even considered a turnover for her in the end. I think she might have got a hand on it, and then someone else grabbed it. But the play did end in a turnover. But I actually, to be fair to Zoe Jackson, I thought she was good. I thought she was good facilitating when she was getting those catches in the high post. She took some really good shots, made some really good decisions. She had 7 points, 4 rebounds. She had 4 assists in 19 minutes, which I think for a big who's still a teenager, I think that's pretty impressive. Put together 4 assists in 19 minutes. But it finished off. Penrith. It was 64-63. Penrith had to foul. They did, and then they were down 60. They were down 3, and Ayana Bay tipped away the inbound pass and got fouled on the break for 2 in possession. So bit of a tough way for it to end. For a game that was 64-63 in the final 30 seconds, for it to end on a tipped inbound pass, unsportsmanlike foul. It was very close to being a very exciting end. When I thought it was 66-63, I was actually really interested to see what Penrith's inbound play was going to be, given the fact that they were 1 of 17 from 3-point range at the time. Who do you turn to in that situation? But
Tegan Edwards.
Tegan Edwards, there you go. So I mean, who was Jolene? Jolene hit that corner 3 in the first quarter after baseline inbounds play. That was their only 3 of the game. But yeah,
I think Tegan had a 3.
But she had a long 2 because I remember the one you're thinking of. I was actually looking at the referee to see if it was a long 2 or 3 because I noticed.
It was counted as a long 2. Devo.
Yeah.
Looks so good.
Yeah. But I mean, for Penrith, it was just they could be 6 and 9 instead. They're 5 and 10, and they're really looking at. Yeah, I mean, to call this a potential trap game for Hornsby, as I said, was not giving Penrith enough credit, and they showed it. But more power to Hornsby. They sit 6 and 6 now, and sometimes you just got to get it done, and they did in the final minutes because they were very close to not. They were up 56-50. And it was then 64-63. So,
yeah, it really could have gone either way. This game really could have gone either way. But like I said before, both teams just showing so many great moments and glimpses of how good they are, but just not enough.
No.
Probably more, whether it's rushing, under pressure, but like you said, lots of turnovers that weren't under any kind of pressure. Lots of predictable kind of play. Especially, Hornsby made that really good adjustment of still double teaming, triple teaming, Vasquez and Heidi. And you feel like with the scout with Jessie May, given that Hornsby, she hadn't hit a 3 all game, knowing that she wants to penetrate and how good she is, just taking that step off her and inviting her to 3. She'll still shoot it.
Yeah.
But, she hadn't hit one. So just keep inviting her to shoot it, get that long rebound. And it's just unfortunate on that last play where they closed out too far and Jessie May was able to penetrate to get that last basket. But that's just what happens in the heat of the moment. You're scrambling, the game's on the line. You're not running out all the time thinking, the scout is, hey, maybe I should make a shoot it. You just running out with that desperation because of the pressure of the game at the time. But yeah, I am going to have a look at some of the outstanding stats for this game. So we've already touched on a couple, particularly the 3-point shooting. So yeah, like you said, Penrith were 1 from 17 all game. Hornsby, Ku-ring-gai were 4 from 24. Interestingly, each team took 68 shots the whole game. Penrith made 23, Hornsby made 25. So that was unusually super close. Turnover count 24-20, Penrith to Hornsby. So obviously big areas of improvement there. Thought the game was really well officiated as well. 17 fouls to 18 fouls for Penrith and Hornsby respectively. And rebound count. Penrith actually won the rebound count with 49 to Hornsby's 45. So that's kind of interesting. Same number of shots. Very close in the rebound count, but Penrith winning. I guess it just comes down to turnovers. Hornsby capitalizing on those turnovers at the right time and just being able to make a couple extra shots. Free throw line, Penrith was 16 from 21, so missing 5. Hornsby were 14 from 18, so missing only 4. So those little things start to kind of add up, I think, in a 5-point ball game.
Oh, Definitely, yeah. And I mean, you say 68 shots apiece, but then you immediately talk about the 4 of 24 compared to the 1 of 17 from 3-point range. And, you a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of the other, and that's how it pans out.
Yeah. But the main leaders in the stats for Penrith this game, Jordan Vasquez had 16 and 16, and including 2 assists and 2 steals. Not her best in game for shooting. She was 8 from 8 from the free throw line, but just 4 from 13 from the field because she was obviously very heavily defended. Then Jolene Imprezzo had 15 points and 6 rebounds in her 29 minutes in the game. She shot a great clip, shooting at 62.5% overall. And Mia Heidi had 11 points and 7 rebounds and 5 steals. So almost a sneaky triple-double with steals. I mean, 5 steals a lot. 10 steals is outrageous. So probably a bit of a big ask. But also shooting 5 from 17 from the field at 29.41%. And for Hornsby Karingai, we had Jessie May Hall with 25 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and 4 steals and a block. Not her best shooting day either, 8 from 23, including 1 from 10 from the 3-point line, but 8 from 10 from the free throw line, so that's pretty good. Ayana Bay went 10 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. And then Lucy Mead had 11 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. So that was kind of the outstanding team stats and individual stats. Let's have a look now what each team plays next. Is there a chance that these teams will meet again, Lockie?
You're making me hark back to all the graphics I built. I don't think they do. No, I know because Penrith have an absolute murderer's run to finish the season.
Oh, that's such a shame.
They have, so Penrith have Newcastle, Comets, Bankstown, Albury-Wodonga, and North to finish the season.
Oh, that's rough. That's rough.
That is rough.
And to finish the season, Hornsby have Centre of Excellence and Hills Hornets in a doubleheader at home in round 11. Then they've got Albury-Wodonga away in round 12. They've got Norths Bears and Manly Warringah Sea Eagles in a doubleheader for round 13, 1 away and 1 home, respectively. They've got Inner West Bulls and Illawarra, another doubleheader, both away in round 14. And to finish off in round 15, they play Albury again at home. So probably not as much of a treacherous run as the Penrith Panthers have to finish the season.
That game against Inner West, I think that is very big. Inner West are 6 and 7, Hornsby Karingai 6 and 6. It could be the game that puts the difference between them almost.
Yeah, because as it stands, Maitland are in that 6th position and Hornsby are in 7th. So Hornsby are 6 and 6, as you mentioned. Sydney Comets are in 8th position with 6 and 7. Inner West in 9th position, 6 and 7. Bankstown in 10th and Canberra in 11th, both on 6 and 8. So it's getting muddy in the middle again, just like the men's competition.
It certainly is. And I mean, I think we have to, at this point, say that you need to be aiming for 7th because that Bankstown team is going to roll and probably finish a lot higher than they are. So you want to be aiming for 7th on the current table, not 8th, because Bankstown are very likely to bump someone out.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. They are, like you said, steamrolling ahead all the way to that 6th spot.
Yes.
Any final thoughts, feelings, news to wrap up before we play our interview?
Thoughts and feelings. I mean, I know we talked a lot about turnovers, but these teams are both very young. A lot of these players are very young, and as skilled as some of them are, they're still young. They're still going to make decisions. They're going to have off days, off quarters, off minutes. So I don't think we can. I think we, can't, you can't play kids and then, destroy them if they have a few turnovers. So yes, the turnover count was high, but I still think plenty to be positive about for both teams. Shout out to Caleb from Basketball New South Wales for coming down and commentating Sutherland v Maitland with Jake and myself. That was very fun. We had the highlight of Kawatnoy fixing the rim. That was quite good. Go check that out on NBL1 East Instagram Reels if you haven't already. It's one of the highlights of my commentary career. But I think that's about everything. I think we should get into the interview because it is a great one.
Definitely a great interview. Without exaggeration, probably one of my favorite interviews of all time with East Got Game. It left us feeling enlightened, hopeful. I felt a bit of personal growth just listening to this person speak. And I'm hoping that the listeners get the same feeling. All right. So without further ado, we did record this yesterday. So we'll add this to the stage and enjoy. Our very special guest this week is a true globetrotter when it comes to basketball and in all shapes and forms and in all different roles of the game. They are someone who has had a very colourful history with basketball and now sharing their talents with the good people on the Central Coast as the Central Coast CRusaders men's head coach for NBL 1. It is none other than Mikko von Lueders. Hi, Mikko.
Hi, Squin. Hi, Lockie. What an intro. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. How are you going down there on the Sunny Coast?
Depends on any given Sunday, right? Or any given Saturday. Look, I think we are the epitome of this roller coaster ride that is the central part of the NBL 1 East ladder. So given this last one was a good one for us, I'm feeling fantastic.
Oh, that's good. That's very good to hear. So sounds like we have timed our interview with you very well then. But here on East Got Game, we always like to start and end our interviews with the same questions. We bookend the interviews with the same. So the first question that we like to start with is, where did your basketball journey begin? Or how did your basketball journey begin?
It's a good question, and I'll try not to bore you with the extensive nature of the answer because it is a big one. I'm someone who grew up moving around a lot. My dad was an airline executive. So every 4 or 5 years, I moved to a new place. So my parents are actually from Sweden and Finland, respectively. But those are both countries I never lived in growing up. So those are grandparent visits only. So I don't really know where I belong. I've been in Australia for 23 years. This definitely feels like home. But the spiritual home that I really kept close to my heart growing up was Los Angeles. That's where I grew up. And I moved there in 1986 as a 10-year-old, right around the time that someone named Magic Johnson was kind of a big deal. So my basketball journey started with Lakers fandom, playing on the playgrounds and trying to explain to 2 European parents why this game had any value whatsoever. They never got it. I don't think they still get it. But they've accepted that this is my lifelong love and passion. So it started with that. And 3 kids later, I'm embarrassed to say my eldest son's legal middle name is Magic. So the tragic nature of my fandom runs really deep.
So were you out on the playground saying I'm Magic Johnson and trying all these moves?
Guilty. I may or may not have had Tragic Johnson given to me once or twice as trash talk when I throw something out of bounds that really could have been a chest pass would have sufficed, but an errant elbow pass felt like the good idea at the time. Yeah, guilty, Lucky.
And when you say the playground, do you literally mean the school playground? And did that ever transfer then to be playing like street ball or regular scrimmages on outdoor courts in LA?
Absolutely, and I think you're kind of leading the witness. Where this story will go. But yeah, look, I started playing. American culture of basketball is very playground oriented. It's a debate I've had with the kind of higher uppers at Basketball Australia for many years now. What is it that differentiates an Aussie player to an American player? And even when you look at our recruitment classes here, how we're always trying to fill foreign talent, why is it that we go to the American player? I think that the American player is playground based, and certainly I grew up that way. And you play a lot, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3. And the structure that we are so expert at here in Australia is a very foreign concept, probably until you get to either a very well-established high school or until you get to the college game. And even then, those programs are so short-lived that you don't get the continuity of what a BNSW offers to kids from the age of 8, 9, 10 growing up. So I think the dichotomy of the two actually makes for a perfect marriage, which is why you see so many Australians having success in the NBA or the WNBA. They're always these plug-and-play elite thinkers of the game, whereas the feel for the game played in sort of that fluid American style, it's a very big difference. So I grew up there playing that style, and obviously I played for high schools, but then again, we play for schools and not for clubs, right? So it's a very different thing there too. And then actually I was 17 when my parents got transferred back to Europe. So I spent 2 years playing in the club-based format of Denmark, where we ended up winning, my team ended up winning a Danish championship, but it was a rude awakening to see the same level of structure in Scandinavia as you do see in Australia. So I think that's why a lot of our sort of import players, they need a minute or two to get adjusted to how we play down here. It's not the same.
I feel like that happens across sports, the level of structure compared to the feel in Australia. Like you look at soccer, where you players are funneled in. You don't hear about, like, compared to South America or continental Europe, where players are out. You hear about kids playing in the streets in South America, and it's very different here, where you're coached from day one almost.
It's true. I mean, I had this debate with my assistant coach group actually last night. We were discussing our beloved NBL 1 team here and the ups and downs that we've had. And, I'll be very forthcoming. You guys can ask me anything you like. We'll be very honest with our responses, because I think we've had some success and we've had some failure. And the failures have come through some of the things you're talking about. It's bringing in foreign players, even if our imports have had some time here in Australia, they're still adjusting to the differences. And obviously our homegrown talent that we've seen, especially in a club like the Central Coast, some of those kids have been with us forever. They struggle maybe with the pace or the freewheeling nature of what the imports bring. So, it is a thing. But I think Australians generally, and one of the reasons I'm so proud to call this my adopted home, people assume I'm a foreigner every day, which I am, of course, but I've spent almost half my life here. So for me, this is very much home. But, you look at soccer, for example, Aussies don't throw themselves on the ground and roll around trying to get penalties. They're hard workers. Obviously, I grew up in Los Angeles. There's an unparalleled amount of Aussies in Hollywood. And I've had people say it's because Aussies roll their sleeves up and get to work. They don't mess around with any of the nonsense. And I think that's true for every aspect of Australian culture. And I think it's one of the reasons why Australian basketball players are so successful.
And you talk about your experiences all over the world, because rumor has it you were almost an author So tell us about your book that wasn't published, because I hear it had something to do with your globe trotting and basketball.
Nice lead in, Lockie. Yeah, that's a good alley-oop toss, and I'll see if I can try not to fumble this one at the rim. Look, I'm a failed player, and I'm a failed player insofar as I went to Europe. I was in the BBL, which is the British Basketball League, as a development player. In fact, the team that Nick Nurse of NBA lore owned in the south of England. And I just didn't know that my ankles were made out of glass. So I kept destroying my body, and my career kind of ended before it began. And it was very depressing. To be honest, I went into a deep hole because that was very much a huge part of my identity. And what dragged me out of that hole, I was in a Borders bookshop in London reading all the Slam magazines. You know, this is pre-internet. You know, you had to get all of your basketball news on delay, sometimes published a month in advance. And I'd kind of cleared out every magazine I could read. And then I kind of thought, well, I wonder what kind of basketball books there are. So I walked down the aisles, and there wasn't a whole lot. And so it kind of planted a seed for me. And I then ended up pitching some publishers over the course of the next few months. And I ended up getting some funding, and I spent 3 years traveling the world with a book project, following street ball, and ended up hitting 85 countries and really playing in and amongst, or playing, observing, taking notes, in and amongst some of the best. I had some time with Yao Ming in Shanghai. I lived and hung out with the And One mixtape guys in the peak of their heyday. I was actually in Canada when 9/11 happened, and while everybody was trying to get out of New York, I actually flew to New York, and I ended up volunteering with some people and helping firefighters dig through the rubble in the World Trade Center in the mornings. And then the evenings, I was either at Rucker Park or Soul on the Hole in Brooklyn, and just watching some of the best basketball that gets played at street level all throughout Europe. And that's the trip that took me to Australia the first time. And I spent 3 months here playing pickup ball. The good old KGV down in the Rocks in Sydney was my spot. And then I happened to be at Uluru when Adidas unveiled a court in their local community there, which was cool to be part of. I was at a celebrity game in Las Vegas back when Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears were a couple. They were playing in it. And the absolute highlight was I snuck into a gym in Los Angeles. I'd heard a rumor that Magic Johnson had a private pickup game there. I snuck in. I sat in the bleachers. They had 14 guys. They needed a fifth. I had my shoes on. I stepped on the court. I was chasing my man around a screen. I got leveled. I looked up. Magic Johnson had just put me on my ass, and I've never been so happy in my life. So yeah, there's a few stories there, Lockie. Good times were had.
So what happened to the book?
It's a good question. You give a 20-year-old, 23-year-old, that's what I was by the end of it, a lot of money to go out and follow his dreams. And then you ask him to be responsible with the return on investment. I was young and dumb, and I hadn't really understood that when someone pays for a project like this, they actually own it. So I ended up feeling like it would be better off if I took out a loan, and I ended up paying that money back, and then I was going to self-publish. And I guess it sits in thousands of Word document files on my laptop, never to have been actualized. So, I guess I dropped the ball during COVID. I guess that was the time to sit down and actually pump this thing out. But, instead, I had my tripod set up, and I was doing one-on-one sessions with some youth players, bouncing the ball in my driveway. Look, it'll come out one day, I'm sure. But now it lives on as conversations like this one.
Do you still have any photos or any kind of graphic or illustration that can complement the words in your book, just to make it like a complete almost coffee table book about scrimmaging around the world or pick up basketball around the world?
It's funny because in 1999 to 2003, which is what this was, I had a backpack. I had a couple pairs of shoes in there. I had clothes. I had 2 deflated basketballs because that was the only way I could move with them on planes and etc. just for space. There was no camera equipment. There were no mobile phones. There was none of that. That it's pre that era. So I got mugged a handful of times. I had guns pulled on me. I had one put in my mouth when I showed up in a neighborhood that I shouldn't have been in. It wasn't a time where it wasn't a project that was well thought out in terms of safety and security. Anytime I went into neighborhoods I had no business being in, I would bring no valuables of any kind. So the answer to your question is no. And I think there was reasoning for it that made sense to me at the time. But of course, you're kicking yourself. I mean, I spent time in North Africa. That would have been some really cool photos. Playing 3-on-3 on islands of Greece, going all through Southeast Asia, spending time in Singapore and learning that the reason Australians and Americans have a bond in basketball is because during World War II, prisoner of war camps were held in Singapore, where Japanese captors actually played Aussies, caught Australian soldiers against American caught soldiers against one another, and would take bets on it. Like crazy stuff that I really should have done a better job of sort of capturing for eternity, and yet it just lives in this soon to be senile brain of mine. So yeah, I feel guilty. I'm letting you down, Squin.
No, not at all. Not at all a letdown. It all still sounds super exciting and like so rich with story that I don't think anyone else could replicate. So I really hope that at least the story is shared one way or another someday. And it kind of reminds me of our mutual good friend Nick Lawrence that we actually both met at Sunday scrimmage at Terrigal Stadium. He's a portrait photographer, very well established and successful portrait photographer, and probably one of the nicest guy, if not the nicest guy you'll ever meet. And deadly from the short corner on his strong hand.
Absolutely.
And he's got his project called pickuppeople.co/hoops, where he's got a couple of portraits up and a couple of hoops up that all have a story about where they are and the people that play pickup. So yeah, it's funny how pickup basketball can be so important like that in so many different ways. But your stories are you can't match those stories, Mikko. They're incredible.
Oh, look, I had the time of my life, and like I'm proud of a lot of things. We had this conversation recently as a CRusaders group about following your dreams. We have these young men who are in our charge for a season, sometimes longer, and they're living their current version of a dream, and us old farts who have been there before. And I think the most important thing is to not live life with regret. And I don't plan to topple over sometime soon, but if I did, I can firmly say that I've really chased every dream and not left anything on the floor. And the premise of the book or the project, I guess, was if you look at the globalization of everything, I mean, movies, music, that stuff has been globalized forever, but sport is the other one. And I'm lucky to speak some languages, but I often say basketball is my absolute favorite language that I speak, because no other language I have been in touch with teaches life lessons as well as our sport does. So, and that's universal.
Yeah, I totally agree. I completely agree. It can be a vehicle for so many important things in life that people don't realize. I guess sometimes until it's pointed out, or when it comes naturally to someone in their everyday life. But
Correct.
yeah,
You know, go on.
No, sorry, I was just going to say, speaking of your Crusaders men's team, what was the main objective when you were recruiting for this season?
Well, as you know, Squin, I'd spent most of my time on the women's side of the game over the course of the last few years. And, you know, the Crusaders program, we struggled on the women's side. You know, we really tried to bring it back to life from probably your era of playing. And it took a lot of work. And then obviously, we'll probably get to this later, but I have a special needs son, and my wife really asked me to take some time off hoops last year to be more present at home. You know, weekends. The basketball widows really struggle, whether they be girlfriends or wives or husbands or boyfriends, whatever it is. You know, it's a lot of time away in evenings and weekends. So I took last season off. So I think my biggest concern when I got the call from the front office at Crew asking me to take over the men's program was I just didn't feel I had the capacity to recruit effectively on that side of the gender gap. So I think that insecurity led to me picking up a phone and calling just about everyone I know. And then we started to really build our roster. So I think the short answer, which I never give, so apologies, but the short answer to your question is I felt we needed a lot of balance. And certainly there was a deficiency in our size. The Crusaders program on the men's side, you know, has a rich history, but a lot of those guys were aging out and looking at retirement. And our youth league teams that have also always been very successful on the men's side, which was also my last cup of coffee with the men's program at was our 2020, our COVID season of youth league. We're strong on that wing, and we're strong on the ball, but we're not strong in the paint, you know, with the kids that were coming up. So we needed size, we needed athleticism, and we wanted to add some depth because, as you two know better than anyone, being the quintessential experts on all things NBL 1 East, this league is no joke. It is deep, it's talented. There were games, even as recent as last year, you could call a layup. There are no more layups in this league. Anyone can beat anyone on any given day. And I think the importance for us was rounding out the size and having the depth around what we've already built in-house.
And speaking of recruiting, you recruited Gareth Young out of Waratah Men. Has that league improved as NBL 1 has improved? Is it now like a proving ground that if you are good enough in Waratah Men, you can make it in NBL 1?
It's a great question, and I don't want to demean anyone because I think anyone who brings their all to this sport is worthy of attention and acclaim. But I wouldn't go as far as to say that we as NBL 1 coaches are, you know, sending scouts to the Waratah League and watching every game. I think that would be an overstatement. And by the way, scouts is actually ourselves. But in terms of the obvious talent on each team, I think that's worth looking at. And when you have teams like Tamworth investing heavily into bringing talent to their team, it gives us almost a free look at someone like a Garrick Young or his running mate Maxwell Clark, who you know are now both having a successful time here in the NBL 1 East. So I do think it's something that we'll start looking at, but I don't think it's at the level yet where it's a foregone conclusion that talent will just make that jump. Because I think it's also a commitment thing. You know, we have guys even here that are part of our Crusaders family, like a Ty McGann, who went to play some Waratah League this year. And it's balancing life. Everybody's got those different challenges. So I think people will find their way to the NBL 1 if that's what they really want. And Waratah will still be a legitimate place to play if there are limitations that lead you that way. I hope that answers your question.
I think you hit the nail on the head with the balancing, because that's basically what Sutherland's Waratah men's team is. If you look at it, you wonder, Callum Norris is, going off for 30 a game. He could still play NBL 1, but life gets in the way of these things sometimes.
Correct. I mean, kids, family, jobs, these are all legitimate reasons why you may not be playing. Yeah, absolutely.
Especially for I could say the majority of players in NBL 1 in any conference has probably grown up playing a high level of basketball and has already dedicated at least half of their life to basketball and playing competitively by the time they get to NBL 1. Something's got to give sometimes. And I give full credit to those who are able to play, like your William Bates, your Wombats and your Bronte Moores of the world, who are able to play competitive basketball season since they were, for 20 consecutive years without exaggeration. Got to give credit to those people, because it can become a grind, especially when you get a taste of the other side of life outside of basketball.
And losing is a part of that too, Squin. If you're consistently losing, the grind is significant. I mean, I alluded to my time with the women. Obviously, when I was coaching as an assistant with Jared Scoins, and you were part of that roster, and we had a nice run to the finals, that was phenomenal. And then there was a steep drop off after that, and I was part of that, and it was a grind. Having said that, with my year off, it took 2-3 weeks, and I was miserable. So we are all addicts of the same beautiful game. And so nobody wants to step away from this. Nobody wants to voluntarily step away from competing at this highest of high levels. It's only if something legitimate steps in your way, and that can be injury, it can be life, it can be work, it could be a number of things.
And just to be clear as well, for the record, I was part of that team, but I pulled out before you made finals, so I can't take any credit of getting to finals in that 2020 season. Well,
as an assistant coach, I think I should take all the credit, and I'm happy to share it with you. No, I think you absolutely deserve to share the credit. Look, this is one of those things as well. You look at any player who has a season-ending injury. You look at anyone who contributes, whether it be a manager, whether it be a parent who is there every week making those players feel supported. There is no way that you can take credit for success within a playing group of only 10 people. It goes so much deeper. The family that contributes to club basketball in Australia, it's really something else. And obviously, you get to places like, I've heard there are towns in Tasmania where this is the only show on the road, or even when you go down to Albury and you have a nice Saturday night in Albury, and everybody in the whole town feels like they're in that Lauren Jackson Stadium supporting it. These are big deals, and I think everyone who touches it deserves some credit. So, let's give you a number. I say 12.3% of that finals run was yours.
That's great. I'll take that. That's more minutes than I played all season, so I'll take that 12.7%. Thanks. So what have been some of your biggest surprises and challenges you've had this season?
I think it's interesting. I went out to WA a few years ago for nationals, and I spent some time driving around to the various clubs and meeting front office people, meeting presidents of clubs, and talking money predominantly, and realizing how much money is spent on basketball in clubland in WA blew my mind. And I think the biggest surprise this year for me is that same approach is now upon us here in the NBL 1 East. It is now a full-fledged arms race. We have teams who are spending, we see Sutherland, not this coming weekend, but we see them soon enough. And that's an expensive roster. And that's a big deal. And I think it does a few things. It on the positive side, it legitimizes our division of NBL 1. It raises the stakes. It shows NBL 1. Sorry, it shows NBL talent that NBL 1 is a legitimate place for them to go and spend their time and keep their skill level up in their off season, as opposed to automatically assuming they have to take off to Europe or other leagues. But I think on the negative side, it scares the life out of regions like ours. And, coaches are definitely going to their clubs and saying, look, the stakes are much higher. And in order for us to maintain or hopefully climb, it's going to cost some money. So I think that's a massive surprise, but it's a positive one because, as I said, tides lift all boats, and we all have new targets, and I think it's a good surprise, but it's when you're sitting there and scouting for upcoming games and you're looking at the level of talent and you're trying to game plan for it, you can't help but be wowed by some of the guys who are stepping on court.
So that sounds like the kind of increase in demand for strong finances and sustainable finances as well. I think not only for NBL 1 East clubs, but any club that has an NBL 1 team. I mean, up here in North, we've seen 2 teams have to withdraw in the last 12 months because of unsustainable finances. It's it's an expensive comp to be a part of. So it sounds like that was equally a surprise and a challenge for you this season.
It is, but I have to say, again, I view it as a positive. If you think about how many unsolicited emails, Instagram DMs I get from player agents from globally, it shows that we are now legitimate, and it shows that if you're an agent somewhere in Europe, we've had agents from North Africa, we've had several agents from the States, which is not a surprise, but people who are kind of sliding in and saying, hey, I'm such and such, are you interested in players? And then you even have agents who are reaching out at the sort of mid-season mark saying, you've come to the halfway point, are you looking to bolster your roster in any shape or form? I think that's a phenomenal thing because it means we're officially on the map, and it's the global map. So we are now, I think, legitimate, and I can't see us going backwards. And I feel for those clubs that you've just mentioned that can't sustain it. It will take community investment, but it's also going to take some high-level sponsor investment for clubs to be successful. And even in our beloved NBL 1 East, I'm not going to say any names, but there's definitely some clubs you look at and you think, what are their challenges and how will they be able to keep up? Because it's not going to be easy.
And with the agents approaching you, I'm sure on the outside that might look like a great luxury to have. Does it actually make your job as head coach easier when you're recruiting, or does it just kind of muddy the waters sometimes?
Look, I mean, these aren't agents offering me shampoo deals, right? Like they are trying really hard to sell me on their players, and some of these salaries that they are expecting are completely unrealistic for what we have to spend. So I think you're deflecting quite a few of them right off the bat because it's not realistic. The second thing is, I would say 80% of who is being peddled my way is a 1 or a 2, and if we're saying that the overall, so we go to Canberra this weekend, for example, and obviously when we play the Gunners, these are some big boys, right? And we we've of course gone and signed ourselves a 7-footer, and Lockie referenced Garrick, who has got pogo sticks for legs. We have athleticism, but we don't have that same size, and that's not being on offer to us, at least not this season. But I think it just changes the game. You're trying to filter through what their agenda is. You're trying to filter through what their financial expectations are. And, we spent our budget, and there isn't any sort of slush fund waiting for us halfway through the season. We've got to make this work. But then you look at what just happened with Sutherland last week, and you look at these sort of mid-season signings and a transfer from Perth. This is new stuff. So we're all just trying to figure it out as we move through it.
And I think more than a lot of sports at the state league level, the NBL 1 side is meant to be the culmination of your entire pathway for an entire local area. Like, yes, soccer has NPL clubs that you come up through the pathway, but it's far less of a local community thing. How do you think that the increase in money ties with the mission of the local association to bring players through to the NBL 1 team?
It's a real danger. It's a real danger to that, especially if you're talking about country, towns, etc. I think this has been the cross-pollination of player movement has been happening in metro areas already, whether they be just moving from one metro club to another. That hasn't felt like it's as dramatic, but certainly in country towns where, a Maitland kid is a Maitland kid, Central Coast kid is a Central Coast kid, an Illawarra kid, it's louder when one of those guys moves. And so when you're bringing in talent, there's obviously a cultural fit. We've been lucky in that we've had enough, shall we say, cultural leadership from our established Crusaders that the guys who have come in have become us. We haven't had to become them. But I'm sure that's a balance that's not simple to have, especially if the talent coming in is signaling that we don't have that talent in-house already. That's, of course, going to ruffle feathers and make people feel sensitive. I think we've been trying to message that as we're trying to support what we have and again, add to that depth that I referred to earlier, rather than replace. But if you're coming out of a youth league team where you've been a star and you genuinely see the writing on the wall is it's my turn next, and then your coach brings in somebody in that position, I think that's going to be a tough pill to swallow. And I think that's going to happen more and more and more. So either it becomes no problem at all, Lockie, because we are all constructed this way, and we don't have the homegrown pipeline anymore. I don't think that's likely, but that's one theoretical evolution of all of this. And the other one is that we as coaches simply have to find the balance of introducing talent when we do and making it fit our core values that are already bought into from our established community. And then it's supplementary or complementary. I know that our guys, for example, have been very, very engaged with our community. They spend time in our club. People really appreciate them being around, and they've made themselves locals. And I think that goes a long way. So we'll see. I think for us, I can only speak to really what's happening in-house here. It's worked well, but I can see there can be pitfalls for sure.
I think that's a really, really excellent point that you make, Mikko, about having your homegrown talent set the culture of your team and your club and represent the club's values, and having the new people fit that versus the other way around. Because traditionally, you bring imports in, you bring NBL, WNBL talent in, and all of a sudden the homegrown heroes have to evolve around someone else who's possibly only going to be there one season and may have their own ulterior motives as to why they're there that season. And it's not necessarily to win a championship for who they're playing for, because I think that way to be frank, that's what I saw in the Crusaders men's team last year. And there were so many times we'd watch that team, loaded roster, coach with great experience, just not transferring into the results. And I couldn't figure out why, but I think you've just hit the nail on the head with what you said about having that perspective around your existing club culture, your existing homegrown heroes, and making everything fit around that. Because ultimately, if you don't have the locals to fill a team, you do not have a team. That's what happened at Crusaders with the women's program, for a decade when they were playing Waratah and Championship and ABA. They didn't have a team for 8-9 years until we restarted it, I think, in 2018.
Yeah.
Because there was no talent coming in. There was no team for that talent to stay. And the likes of Danica and Jazz Forcadia had to go elsewhere.
And, this is the thing. And obviously, I have some perspective in that I sat on the sideline last year and I watched what you watched and I saw what you saw. And I don't disagree with what you have to say. And neither do many of the players that are in my locker room. It was a conundrum, but sometimes basketball is not just 1 + 1 = 2. You need for it to be 1 + 1 = 5, because there is this exponential benefit to having the chemistry. And the chemistry is not just snap your fingers and ask them to do it. It has to be bought into. And to Lockie's question earlier about recruiting someone like Garrick Young, that was very much a conversation I had with the Tamworth community. What kind of human is this guy? And he had very well established himself there. And he was a very, very beloved person there. And that made our decision making when we were speaking to him very easy. And, everyone that we brought in, we did a lot of due diligence on. We called, Lino Manholm was playing in Central. Had I ever really honestly had a good look at any of the Adelaide teams? Absolutely not. But I got on the phone and I started making inquests into what kind of player was he. And then, you have someone like Elijah Washington, who had a cup of coffee with Bankstown and then with Comets. Obviously that's closer to home. I was able to make those phone calls. And of course they're going to have their own agendas. They're not born and bred on the Central Coast. They are here to further their careers, as they should be doing. But we have an obligation to them to do our best to incorporate them into what we want and what we expect. And as long as you express that requirement in advance and they willingly sign up for it, knowing that's what's going to be expected, I think you can have a certain measure of success. But ultimately, if you don't have the player group to then demand it day in and day out, it may be difficult thing. So, one ball, 5 guys. It's not simple. Even when they're all brothers, it's complicated.
And I think with the free throw shooting this season, 1 + 1 never equals 2. That's across the league.
It equals.
Jeez.
If you're on the Crusaders team, it equals 60% success. Don't get me started. I can't lose any more hair, Lockie.
I'm not far behind. Don't worry. But the team is currently 6 and 7, and as you said earlier, had a few ups and downs. Do you feel you're far away from putting together a consistent run that might, in the end, get you into finals?
So this is where the honesty is going to kick in. I'm going to just say it as it is. I've had 2 moments this season where I thought mathematically we had given ourselves an end of season scenario. And each and every time we've not completed the mission and won games that we should have won, every team that we needed to lose has gone and lost and kept our hopes alive. So if you look at the last 3 weeks, you now have effectively seed 6 through 13 are effectively tied. There's some nuance to that where somebody might not have played the same amount of games, et cetera, but effectively we are all tied, and we will, for example, play 4 of those teams as we finish out our season. So the truth is we're going to have to go down and do fairly well this weekend in Canberra, which is no small task. And then we're going to have to play our absolute best against Norths. We're going to have to do our best against Newey. We're going to have to do our best against Bankstown and Maitland, all teams who are sitting with us at that tier. I think 1 through 5 is locked in, and I think there's going to be a bloodbath for who gets that 6th seed. So how do we do it? I don't know. We've just lost Claire Samir.
Oh.
Claire Samir, who obviously, those who know, Sydney Kings development player. The wild world of the NCAA, they have actually given him permission, and he has now gone to start a college career. So how on earth that is permissible? Yes, exactly right. The new structure of the NCAA and the NIL and all of the nuance that comes with it, and we celebrate what he brought to us, and we're very grateful for the time we had with him. But I do actually think this is what's going to be best for the kid. And so we send him on his way with our best wishes. We simply, we didn't have him this weekend, and we found that some of our homegrown had to step up and bring it a little bit more. And so I think we have every opportunity. But I think every other team I just listed in that sort of 6 through 13 has to be thinking exactly the same way. So I think it's going to be a race.
It's funny you mentioned that because I had Caleb from Maitland on commentary with me on Saturday night. And as the game wound down and it was obvious Sutherland men were going to win, he's saying, Maitland men, they could be as low as 10th by the end of the weekend. You wake up on Monday morning, they're still in 6th, which is where they were before they lost the game.
They have a healthy point differential. It's serving them well.
I do. I really do.
And just for the listeners, we'll recap the ladder positions just for extra context. So it's COE at 1, Hawks at 2, Comets at 3, Gunners at 4, Sharks at 5. So yeah, agree. Locked in top 5. Then you've got Maitland at 6, Newcastle 7, Crusaders 8th, Manly 9th, North's 10th. You are all on a win-loss record of 6 and 7. And
correct.
At the start of every season of East Got Game, we always refer back to this dreaded 3-way tie from 2 seasons ago that, stressed us out way too much. This is just ridiculous because 11th place, Bankstown are 6 and 8 because they've played 1 extra game. So, I mean, even then you can put them, I guess, in the mix.
Yeah, and even Hills, who we just beat on the weekend, they're 5 and 8. But I mean, we were tied going into that game. Every single one of these things matters. And if you take Hornsby, I mean, they're chasing it as well. So it's really it's a tight race, and this is fantastic for basketball, but it's hyper stressful for coaches.
Yeah, and it's really fun for us as fans and content creators. Love it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, it all matters.
What college did Claire Samir go to in the end? Are you allowed to say?
It's going to a college called Campbell in one of the Carolinas. I should know. North or south, I cannot remember. But
it's in Buies Creek, North Carolina. I know that because it's where Audrey Fuller from Queensland was at. I think she just graduated. Yes.
Yes, she's back. She's back in a Caps jersey.
Yes, she is.
So I was able to throw you the alley-oop this time, and you were able to dunk it. Thank you, Lockie.
I got you.
Yeah, so...
First basket of my career.
But, this is an interesting sort of side conversation, and that is when these conversations started, and Claris let me know this was part of his thinking, I was dumbfounded. Even as recently as 2 years ago, I was writing letters to the NCAA trying to get them to be less stringent with some of our players who were having some challenges with their sort of universities questioning the NBL 1 being a professional league. And now, if this is how it's going to go, it could open up a massive, massive scenario where the free flowing movement from NCAA to NBL1, and the restrictions that we've previously seen there, if those are fully lifted, I mean, that's yet another nuance to what craziness could ensue.
And another, Campbell is also where Anthony Delorso went before he transferred to Arizona. So it was a fairly good springboard for him.
Let's hope the kid gets what he wants out of this. He's a good one. So I would love for Claris to have success.
And so you did refer to this a little bit earlier on when we were speaking about another topic of conversation. You did have a year off from coaching last year for various reasons, and you filled the gap by being a commentator for the Central Coast Crusaders with our beloved Hamish Salzberg. How was this experience for you as a commentator, and would you do it again?
Well, I didn't fill the gap. Someone named Squin filled the gap because she put me in that position. I forgot
that bit. I generally forgot that bit.
It was a phone call from you to me, and it was a saving grace because, as I alluded to earlier, I was really missing basketball, and it let me be in touch with it. But I was quite intimidated by the whole thing. I mean, I'm happy to yap with anybody about basketball. It's obviously my favorite thing, but I didn't really think that it would be an easy seat to fill. And I'm not just kissing your butt, but I felt like you and Hamish in particular had a really lovely cadence to how you bounced off of each other, and you complemented each other very well. Obviously, I listened to every one of those games as I went back to see what I'd done well or not done well, et cetera, et cetera. But it was an intimidating thing. And then within 5 minutes of having the headphones on, I was in love. It was fantastic. I did find, someone like Hamish who is, I'm so sad for him that he's not doing it this year because he is so phenomenal at what he does. So sitting next to someone like him made it very easy. It was a real enjoyment, but I have to say the things that I struggled with the most was obviously I was there to think and talk like a coach, but also to speak like a coach, and the criticism that we feel comfortable delivering had to be changed into the correct context. And you had to be conscious of who your audience was. So, you're speaking to a listener, you're not speaking to a player, or you're not speaking to an assistant coach, you're not speaking to a team manager. You're not actually involved in trying to affect performance in any shape or form. You're purely commenting on it and appreciating it. And Hamish would ask me questions. We had a player last year who, I suppose, to be somewhat diplomatic, didn't like passing the ball very much. And I remember the very first game, I sat there and I just couldn't believe the shot selection I was watching, and the coach in me was going insane. And then I had Hamish ask me a question, and I believe my call was, well, he's not here to get the assist record this season. And I realized I'm going to have to figure out a way to pretty up my language when I see things that were driving me crazy. So yeah, it was fun though. To answer your question, it was a blast, and I would absolutely do it again. But I'm not running to get off the sideline anytime soon.
I will say, all three of us have called games. I've called one game with Hamish, and Hamish, he makes it easy to be the co-commentator. There are some play-by-play commentators that you're like, he bounces off everyone really well.
He does. And I also realized, you asked me if I would ever commentate again. Absolutely. Color commentating, fantastic. There is no chance in the universe I could do play-by-play. Zero, none. That is a talent and an ability that is second. It really impressed me. And I've been watching basketball since before most people in our league were even alive. And I never thought about it. I just appreciated it, but I never thought about what it goes, what it takes to go into that sort of rapid fire observation, and watching him do it and thinking to myself, there's just no chance. My appreciation grew for all play-by-play guys and gals.
Well, yeah, it's really interesting because a lot of play-by-play commentators I've worked with, some of them can, like I did a game on the weekend, and when we do game of the week up here, there's 3 of us. There's a play-by-play and usually a color commentator that would focus more on one team or the other. Sometimes I've worked with play-by-play commentators, though, who would do their bit, but then do that bit extra where it is color. And then I'm like, well, I've got no space to talk kind of thing. And Hamish has that perfect balance of doing his job, getting you to do your job at its best as well, and just bounce off each other so nicely. But I will say as well that I think, like Hamish and like we've got a friend in WA, Eric, who's also a great play-by-play commentator. You were either play-by-play or you're a color. Very rarely can people do both, and each of them have an appreciation for the other, because we're both like, me as color, I'm like, I know what I'm doing, heads in the game. If I need to do play-by-play, I can, but it will sound very ordinary. So that's why we're like, oh, play-by-plays are all over it. And usually play-by-plays are like, oh, I don't know how you do color. Like, it's just, you're either one or the other, I feel like. And you're perfect at color because, like you said, you had so much experience with the game, watching it for so long. Having that coach's lens, though, is certainly to your advantage, but you'll start to create ways of how to phrase things so it sounds a little bit more neutral or diplomatic or positive, not positive ending, because you're not like a negative Nancy by any respect. But yeah, just finding that phrasing comes with time.
It came by eventually, and I did enjoy it. And I think you can be critical without being demeaning. Obviously. So there's a balance, but with someone like Hamish, he's asking you a question and you're answering it. He is, as Lockie said, he's making it very easy for you. And I think that's a talent. Now, I know we have a lot of wonderful fans who are really into our game, but I think they're into the game, and the commentating crew is its own game. And I think I would challenge people who are watching our games to actually think about what goes into doing that, because when it's done well, it can turn an average game into an excellent game.
And vice versa. A really good game into a boring game, because I've definitely watched some professional games on TV where I'm like, this is actually a very exciting game to watch, but I am not feeling any excitement or any emotion or anything from the commentators right now. I don't think people realize that commentators hold that responsibility as well. It's not just turning up and talking.
Well, to that point,
well, in its simplest form, yes, if you don't want to overthink it, but also no.
Well, to that point, I grew up, and Lakers games, when they were playing, would often be past my bedtime when I was a kid. So I would go to bed, and then I had a radio, and in Los Angeles there was a commentator by the name of Chick Hearn, who was sort of famous for being, the GOAT of commentators. And certainly he's I have one of his jerseys, special commemorative jersey of his on my wall here. And I grew up going to bed, having my parents turn the lights out, and then sneaking a radio and listen to what they called a simulcast. So Chick Hearn would call the games live on film, but also on the radio. And so he would really bring an entire basketball game to life in my mind as I was listening in my bed. So I think the ability to talk about a sport and inspire love with your voice, great coaches can do it. Great captains or leaders can do it. Commentators can do it. It takes a special person, but that's the beautiful thing about our game, is that you can appreciate it on so many different fronts.
Well, Waratah finals, they're always looking for volunteers. Put your name down.
It's not the first person in this East Got Game crew to kind of put that plant a seed with me. So we'll see.
But I honestly completely forgot that we had that conversation, and now I think about it, I also wanted to make sure that the person replacing me was of a particular standard, because I feel like Hamish and I had established something really good at that club with our commentary for the 2 years. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be really up myself here and be like, I want to be part of who's taking my spot.
Well, there is no greater compliment. The only problem with that is everybody sitting in the audience, all they could see was these two bald heads on the other side of the court. We gave up a little bit of attractiveness by removing you and putting me in, but that's okay.
No, that's why you don't see us on camera. You just hear our voices. Like it's perfect. How they say faces for radio.
It's true.
Perfect.
We do, as Swin mentioned earlier, we bookend our interviews or conversations with the same two questions. So, final question of the evening: who is Mikko off the court?
It's a good question. Basketball is so integral to my life, but I guess it starts with I'm a father and I'm a husband. I've got 3 kids, aged 18, 13, and 8. My 18-year-old is about to head over to Europe and spend some time there. My 13-year-old is absolutely mad for basketball. Both of those young men live in Victoria with their mother. So I spend school holidays with them. They're big fans of the Crusaders. Then my 8-year-old, he is autistic. So I guess a big part of my life is the autism world and the steep learning curve of being a special needs father. And so my wife and I navigate that on a day-to-day basis. And I think, just like you can learn a lot from your passions, some lessons are force-fed to you. And I think having a special needs kid has opened up my eyes to what really matters and things like that. So I think that's a big part of who I am off the court. Life is unpredictable. You don't know where you're going to end up or how it's going to look. And I think a lot of people hear things like this and it makes them a little bit nervous, or it makes them reticent to ask follow-up questions because it's, I guess it on the surface looks like a very sensitive topic, but I would challenge it to be the opposite. I think I'm very proud to be the father of a special needs kid, and I think that these little treasures have a lot that they teach us about how to see the world. And so, if spending most of my time with 20-year-olds doesn't keep me young, then seeing the world through the eyes of someone who sees the world in a very, very different way certainly will keep me young. And we're here for a good time, not a long time. So you got to make the most out of this life and follow your dreams and your passions and really, really love the opportunity we all have. It's kind of like if you're that bench warmer and you don't think you're ever going to get into the game, and then somebody calls your name and you get to go in for those 90 seconds, you've got to give that 90 seconds absolutely every ounce of passion that you've got. And I think all 3 of my kids have given me an opportunity to do that with boring stuff like making breakfast or, walking on the beach or whatever it may be. So there's your somewhat cheesy but genuinely honest answer. Yeah, that's me.
So you're not a gamer like everyone else we interview.
I have to admit, can I tell you, I've I'm raising 3 gamers who they are so punished by my absolute disdain for all things video game. I am so old school when it comes to things like that. You know, I always tell the joke, yeah, we had video games when we were young. It's called being outside. So
okay,
it's
Dad.
true dad logic and dad humor there. No, look, I like my music. I like my movies. I am really hardcore about hiking and running. This is the beginning of what's going to be my Everest beard, because in November I'm going to do one of the world's most difficult treks. My wife won't let me climb Everest because she'd, for some reason, like me to come back home. She deems it as too risky, but I'm doing a 3-week, 250-kilometer hike where I'm getting to just sub 6,000 meters 5 times. So I'm in training for that. So I will grow this beard to be nice and warm for myself when I get there. And so I think that's the kind of stuff, you know, my glass ankles won't let me get on court and do anything spectacular. So endurance stuff is kind of what I've got left to pursue. So I guess that's my video game.
Endurance, I like that. We've got that in common. That's my a medal up there from an event that I ran. So yes, 250K. So what do you scale 5 different mountains to base camp or something like that?
Correct. So, you know, obviously Everest is 8,848 is the height. So 6,000 or just sub 6,000 isn't actually that big of a deal by the standards of mountaineers and climbers, but it's certainly enough to where altitude will play a serious role in the struggles. Interesting story as I trained for this, because it's of course very difficult to get high altitude training in Australia. When we played Albury, I drove down the night before, and on the game day of Albury, I went and climbed Mount Bogong, which is the highest peak in Victoria. Made my way to the game. I was a little bit tired, not as tired as the rest of the guys were, unfortunately, when we blew that one. But and then the next morning, rather than drive back to the Central Coast, I drove to Mount Kosciuszko and climbed that the very next day. So that was my vehicle for doing some pre-Everest training. But yeah, 2,000 something. Like Mount Kosciuszko is the same elevation as the start of my trek when I get to Nepal, so it's not the same thing.
I wish you the best of luck with that trip, especially because it sounds certainly once in a lifetime. And gee whiz, if we had to, well, we can potentially call this episode Once in a Lifetime with Mikko, because a lot of the stories you've shared are certainly once in a lifetime. And I'm also going to be that annoying friend to plant this seed in your head when you go climbing, that I hope you get The Climb by Miley Cyrus stuck in your head while you're climbing. So think of me when you're climbing. So rude. Think of Miley Cyrus.
That's so rude.
Think of The Climb. Maybe I'll just send you.
You're gonna have it in his head for all 250K now.
Yeah,
that's all I'm gonna hear. Can I tell you? As long as I'm not listening to children's music, I'm golden. It'll be great.
How do you go with the locker room music? Do you enjoy what the players listen to?
We have an eclectic style in our locker room, though I have to say they've probably corrected this in themselves, as they're always wearing their headphones, because their styles are so different to one another that we don't have any one DJ who plays for the whole group. I don't think they'd all appreciate it. So it's relatively quiet for us as coaches, because they're listening to their stuff until we get them to take them off. But sometimes they'll come and go, "Hey coach, what do you think of this?" In fact, Elijah Washington put his headphones on my head the other day, and it was like full-blown 90s R&B. And I'm like, oh, this is taking me back to school dances. Why are you listening to this stuff? So there's always a surprise.
What was I going to ask you about that? Oh, yeah, I was going to say, you're a parent when your Spotify Wrapped is, The Wiggles and Paw Patrol and Coco
It's
Melon
so
or
bad.
whatever else.
It's so bad. Look, there's a few reasons why I promote holding off on parenthood until you've lived some life. That's definitely one of them. Enjoy your music while you still have control of the DJ rights in the car.
Well, Mikko, you've been a fantastic guest. Certainly didn't disappoint. Probably one of my favorite episodes over the 3 seasons of East Got Game. You've certainly shared a lot of wisdom throughout this episode that I'm going to take away with me. But there's just one phrase that we would like you to take from us today. And what is that, Lockie?
Don't sleep on the East.